Hey everyone! So as the garden season continues to wind down, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on the garden so far for this year. And what I want to do in today's video is talk about the best decisions that I made for gardening in 2021. So I have my laptop here with my list. It's not too long, but there are some things that I am definitely glad I did this year. There's a lot of things I'm not so happy I did, but that's for another video. So by far, the very best decision I made in the garden this year, like the other things I've done don't even come close, was to finally install an irrigation system. So we moved into our house last year, and this is our first time owning a place, so I'm finally starting to feel some sort of like permanency that I can go ahead and get things set up because I know we're not going to have to pack up and move in a year. So last year we finally moved in. I didn't set one up then because I still was getting different pieces of my garden together. But finally this year, I installed my first irrigation system in the garden. And I was a little hesitant at first. I think it took me a few months into the garden season to really get it set up because I thought for some reason it was going to be really difficult or take a really long time, but it wasn't at all. It was actually much easier than I thought. And I think I have a video on how I set up the drip system in this garden, so I'll post that below if you want to check it out. But I cannot tell you just the amount of time this has saved me in the garden. The less stress I have. We can actually go away on the weekends and I know my garden is going to be watered. That's something that can be really difficult to do when you do have a garden, is travel, because you obviously want to make sure that your garden's getting watered as frequently as it needs to be. So finally having this drip system installed means that I no longer had to fill up milk jugs and tip them over or try to find somebody to come water the garden. We can leave for as many days as we want and my garden is going to run. So a little bit of information on the irrigation systems I have. In this garden, which I consider to be like the main garden, I have the Proven Winners drip system. This was recommended by Garden Answer, so I went ahead and got that one. I also got the automated timer. You're going to need that if you want it to run on its own. And I think that was also on the Proven Winners site. I'll link both those below if they are in fact from the same place. But those are the drip irrigation system, so I run it every morning for about 30 to 45 minutes in my garden, and I can easily turn it off if it looks like we're going to have a lot of rain, which is what's happening this week, but it makes gardening just so much easier. Now in the back garden, which is really just where I put the 4 melon plants I ran out of room for in the regular garden, I had a different sort of irrigation system, which was from Amazon, from the brand Carpathian, I think is how you pronounce it. I'll link that one down below as well. And that one shoots out a lot more water. It's not a drip system, so it has like a little fountain of water that spurts out. So that one I ran for, I'm trying to remember if it was either 5 or 10 minutes every morning. But they both worked equally as well. I think I do like the drip system a little bit more just because the water does go right to the roots, but both systems work great. I don't think either of them was particularly expensive. I think the Proven Winners one was 40 or 50, I'll have to check. And I was able to use just one kit for this entire garden up here. I did have to buy some additional pieces, so like additional emitters, just because the regular kit doesn't come with as many as I needed. But it's been such a great investment in the garden this year. So my plan for next year is just to expand the drip system even more and get it into more of my smaller pots and containers. So now it's basically in all of my raised beds, all of my larger structural pieces that I know aren't going to move around. So next year I just want to get everything that I can set up on that system. So if you don't have an irrigation system in your garden, I can't recommend it highly enough. So that is number one, and again, by far the best decision that I made. Next on the list kind of plays into number one, and that was that I finally got all of my raised or elevated beds. So I got my first elevated bed the first year I really started balcony gardening, so 3 years ago. I got it. All of my raised beds are from Grownomics. I got my first one online from Home Depot, but it was the same brand. And then last year, I think in the fall, I added my second one. And then this spring, I added my final two. So I have 4 raised beds total in the garden. And I like them for, well, a ton of different reasons. One, they give me more space, so they're obviously much larger than a grow bag or a container I have, so I can grow things that need more space, or I can fit a lot more in there than I can in like one individual pot. So having the extra space has been incredible. Also, I like the difference in heights in the garden, so I like having some stuff that's high up, some stuff that's lower to the ground, so it's not just kind of all one level. I guess it's just a lot nicer of a look overall. And it really just has made my garden feel more complete, if that makes sense. So I kind of have the structure in place, and then I can finally add on finishing touches. And that's something I was waiting for in order to install the drip system, was I didn't want to install a drip system first and then have to completely reconfigure it once I got all of my elevated beds in place. So I think at this point, with the 4 I have in the garden, I'm in a pretty good place. I don't think I need any more. I don't know if I actually have any room anymore. If anything, I'll get another raised bed and it's going to migrate to the back deck, which I'm really trying to keep my garden contained to one area so we can really have like the garden deck and then the deck we actually use to sit on. But I think anyone who gardens knows that the garden can expand pretty quickly whether you want it to or not. So that's number 2, is getting all of my raised beds. So number 3 on the list is ordering seeds online. And I know most of you have probably been doing that for a while, but this was my first year ordering any type of seeds online. So in the past, I would get mostly plants that were already started from the garden centers, and then seeds, basically whatever I could find local to me. So Home Depot, garden centers, and obviously that's going to limit the availability of what I can grow. So I first purchased seeds. Now technically I purchased them last fall, I think, for this year, but this year was the first year that I actually grew them. And the only place I've ordered seeds online so far has been from Johnny's Seed. But even just expanding into one online retailer for seeds has given me so many more opportunities of plants to grow. So the things that I've gotten, I know I've mentioned a lot of this before, but like my large zinnias, my marigold, gomphrena, the sunflowers, things that I just wouldn't be able to find locally. So it's really been amazing trying out a whole bunch of plants, and it's going to be something that's going to feel like tough to rein in. I've already placed my seed order, well, my first seed order for next year, with a bunch of new flowers that I haven't tried before. So really just being able to order almost anything I want has made gardening even more exciting than it already was. And number 4 goes right along with this, but it was that I started many more plants from seeds and bulbs this year than I have in the past. So usually I would get the starts of plants from garden centers and then plant them in my garden. And that worked, I think, really well for vegetables, but I feel like I didn't have as much luck with flowers when I did that. I don't know why. I'm 100% sure it was user error for some reason, but when I started a lot of my flowers, like my zinnias from seeds, my dahlias from tubers that I got at a local garden center, they've just done so much better than they ever have in the past. I haven't had as many like diseases. The pests are still everywhere, but they have seemed to grow a lot stronger. They've done a lot better. I don't know if it's because they've started growing in the same environment instead of having to be, transplanted to different environments when you're purchasing a plant that's been started somewhere else, but starting from seed has definitely made my garden a lot happier. So I'm going to plan to do that again next year as well. The next decision that I am happy I made this year was creating a garden schedule for myself. And I don't actually know if I've spoken about it on this channel before, but I can make a separate video just kind of going over the basics. But essentially before this year, I kind of just went out in the garden each day or every other day and did whatever I thought needed to be done. But having a schedule has really helped me be much more efficient with my time. I actually spend less time every day in the garden when I know exactly what I need to do that day. And it's also made sure that I don't miss anything. So I feel like, especially in years past, I've been really good at fertilizing early on in the season, and then I kind of forget as it gets later into the season. But having the same weekly schedule just makes it a lot easier for me to know exactly what needs to be done. So just kind of a quick example, one day I go out and I do all of the deadheading, another day I do all of the fertilizing, watering, obviously that's set up automatically, but anything that's not in pots or things that don't need to be watered every day, I check those on certain days. So things like that, I just wake up and I automatically know what needs to happen in the garden that day. Now, my garden's not huge, so you might think, do you really need a schedule? But for me, it really has been incredibly helpful just to have some sort of organization in the garden. Now, this last decision, I actually don't know yet if it's a good decision, but I'm gonna say it is anyway. And that is planting fall bulbs. So I've just started doing this, but basically I've never planted fall bulbs before to have an early spring bloom. And then I always regret it once spring actually comes around and I see other people's tulips and daffodils blooming and I'm still staring at empty containers of dirt. So this year I have already started to plant some fall bulbs. I've planted irises so far. I'm going to be planting tulips and daffodils and a couple other plants into my raised beds so that next year when we're early spring and nothing else is blooming, I'll actually have some flowers to look at. So obviously I haven't planted all the bulbs. It's not next spring, so I don't know if they successfully have grown, but I'm going to cross my fingers and say that this was one of the best decisions that I've made this year in the garden. Now, after they bloom, I do plan to kind of move them down to the parkway, so we'll also see how that goes, but I'm just really excited to be able to look out my window, and even if it's still cold outside, see the tulips and daffodils blooming. So I'll obviously keep you updated and bring you along with me as I do plant those, and then hopefully next spring, showing you how beautiful they look. So that is everything on my list of the best gardening decisions I made this year. Obviously, I've made a lot of other decisions that I'm happy about, but these are the ones that really stuck out to me, and I think it's because a majority of them not only benefited me this year, but are going to benefit me in years to come in the garden. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what your best garden decisions were this year, and I will see you in the next video.